Hi, this is Peggy van der Plas. I'm super delighted today. I have a fantastic guest, which is also a very good friend of mine, Lina Ismail. Lina is an entrepreneur. She's also a former executive in the financial services and tech industry. She has a very exciting resume. She's going to tell you a bit more about that in a second. On the personal side, she's a fellow Canadian. She has roots in Palestine. And if I need to define Lina in a word, I would say transformation. Transformation is in her DNA, both professionally and personally. So thank you so much, Lina, to be with us today.
Thank you, Peggy. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And
Okay.
I can't say great things about the things that you're doing right now. So super excited to be here.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much, and thank you for taking the time. So I want to jump right in. Tell us more about who Lina is, personally and professionally, because we know that it's very much intertwined. So you're an entrepreneur now, you were an executive, you're a daughter of immigrant. Tell us how all of that brought you where you are.
Oh, wow. It's I can say a lot about it, but I will try to keep it short. So this idea that, I think intrinsically within my roots, raised in the household that I was raised in, and I don't think it's specific to my cultural background and my heritage. Because in a way, I mean, I really do feel like it's an interesting, position to be in, like any sort of first generation Canadian, that I feel more Canadian at times than I do feel, Palestinian. But it's also, I think, really brings me back to a concept that, my dad reinforced when we were growing up, which is that you're a global citizen. And as
Mhm.
much as he was proud of
Yeah.
his heritage, that whole feeling of understanding the world, understanding people, you really do have to appreciate history. You have to be
Yeah.
willing to listen, and understand different perspectives. So I think I've always taken that approach throughout my life. I've been very fortunate enough to have had a dynamic career where I was, very early on working globally in different
Yeah.
countries. And so it was great. It was a great experience, but it also reinforced, I think, that principle that my father, had given to us, and I think that was something that that worked well for me throughout my career. But to summarize, I've spent a lot of time in the financial services industry, primarily on I would say the technology side,
Mhm.
in the back office specifically of asset management firms. So we sold technology into those companies, and then we also were selling, the full kind of outsourcing model. So that was the world that I lived
Yeah.
in. And so I was in roles that were more growth oriented, product strategy. And so always thinking about how to stay ahead, thinking about, what was important to the customer, to the end user. And, I think that it just sort of drove me to become much more resourceful
Yeah.
in the environments that I was in, because as you can imagine, they weren't environments that wanted to take much risk. So it was, how can we take a
Mhm.
measured approach to this? How can we do and move the needle slightly, but also within the context enough to be able to create the impact that, the organization was looking for? And so that translated into my desire to want to work as an entrepreneur, because it just kind of, it allowed me to have a bigger platform to be able to be more creative
Mhm.
and to define the way that I wanted to be able to run my business. And so I do have the Catherine Wheel right now, which is a company that works with early stage startups from pre-seed to Series A, and in the process of working with them to move the needle on their business to help them achieve their growth objectives. We will touch every aspect of the business at some point, because our belief at the Catherine Wheel is that if you change one aspect of your business, all other aspects have to change at the same time. Now, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's going to be equal proportions or equal weight, but nonetheless, that you need that in order to create transformation and ultimately change across the board that is going to impact your business, but positively. So, I would say that has, yes, naturally been part of my DNA. I've always espoused to being someone who's not afraid of change. I've always encouraged others to embrace change. It's been something that I would say has just been exciting. And I've always found ways to solve for challenges, overcome hurdles in both my professional and personal life. But I think today's discussion is probably going to get to the root of something that really was the, I would say, the impetus for massive change in my life.
Yeah, and you know, more than change, it's really transformation. And I like how you frame it. It's a sum of changes that makes
Mm,
transformation. We tend to think that transformation is 0 to 100. You get up one morning and it's totally different. And
mhm.
usually that might happen, but it's rarely for very good news. So, you know, you'd rather have incremental changes that brings you to the goal. So one of the questions I have for you, when you engage in a lot of personal transformation, and again, your career and becoming an entrepreneur is very tied to that. What was your intention behind your personal transformation journey? Was there an event that led you to this, you know, personal transformation? What really put you really in that on that journey?
It's a great question. So, you know, I want to say that I woke up one morning and said, it's time for some change and some real change. And I got to go in and tackle those demons and those things that are holding me back that I have a sneaking suspicion are there, but I don't want to really look in the mirror and accept them.
Yeah,
And I say it in that way because it's so challenging for many of us to want to just one day say, okay, it's time for real transformation, as you called it, or I'm ready to embark on understanding myself better and creating greater awareness. I mean, that is an incredible first step if people are willing to do that. But for me, it unfortunately came about through some hardships. And I think that I was faced with a very tumultuous departure from my last role, and that caused me to just look at life completely differently. You know, you're handed something that in a way was saying, look, life is actually saying to you that the path that you're on, the way that you have been operating isn't going to cut it anymore. And
yeah,
now you need to face, you know, that opportunity head on. Sometimes we're given sort of gradual reminders or hints.
yeah.
But I think that for me, it was all at once and it came
Mm-hmm.
crashing down professionally, personally. I was going through a divorce, which was actually the least of all my worries. It was a pretty amicable one, but nonetheless, it was change,
Nonetheless,
you know,
yeah,
it was change.
exactly.
And I have two wonderful kids and now a puppy. And so, you know, all of it was really to us, I think, an opportunity for us to just challenge what we
Yeah,
thought was normal, what we thought was
exactly.
important to us. All of that got kind of turned on its head.
Yeah,
And I can't tell you enough how many people at the time would say to me, you know, this too shall pass. And, you know, remember that you'll come out of this stronger. And I
yeah,
tried very hard to believe all of them. And ultimately, when I turned that corner, it just became that much more clear for me. And that's really where I just like doubled down on my transformation.
yeah. And you know, that's one of the things that I love about you is that okay, you had external impetus, but you are also already very aware to realize that, okay, I've got the signs already left, right, and center, maybe patterns, you know. I think a good way to see that transformation is needed is when you constantly see the same pattern, or, you know, you want to go and achieve a certain goal, and for whatever reason you can seem to be able to achieve it. Usually for me it's great red flags that, oh my god, there is something here that is blocking me and I really need to dig on that, versus, you know, burying it down and pretending it doesn't
Totally.
exist. So you tackled heads on
Mm.
what was coming at you. You were also smart enough to get help to accelerate, turbocharge your personal transformation. Plant medicine is obviously something I want to discuss with you, but I know you've done other things. So can you explain to us a little bit what your personal transformation journey has been so far?
Mm, happy to. And I like that you broached both, you know, getting help, asking for help. it's such a hard thing for so many of us.
Yes.
And I have to say that I was pretty stoic about it, you know, in the early days, and I didn't think I needed any help because
Mm-hmm.
that's how I ran most of my life for many, many years. And I would say even at the
Yeah.
youngest, you know, age of
Yeah.
5. And so, and you and I've talked about that at length. And so, you know, I think that fundamentally the first step for me was to accept that I needed professional help.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sought the counsel of a therapist and, you know, started with one. She was lovely. You know, you know, made me feel comfortable. It was totally great. I was curious. I mean, I've always had this sort of innate curiosity about life.
Yeah.
So I was curious and probably a little too analytical because you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'd get in my own way with respect to, well, what does that mean? And how does this apply? And, you know,
Yeah.
and so you had to sort of calm yourself to a point where you had to practice being present
Mm-hmm.
and not trying to solve for everything and anything that could come along because of that desire that I innately had to want to control.
Exactly.
And so I
It's
think when I
safe.
found
It's
it's
safe to
safe,
control,
totally.
you know, and I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
it's a protection mechanism. You know, I
Yes,
see
it
many
is.
people who
Yeah.
are controlling. I'm extremely controlling, even if I'm trying to let it go. And every
Yeah.
time, you know, I'm trying to have a bit of compassion for myself because I know it's my 5 years old, your 5 years old, who was in an environment that was unsafe. And
Mhm.
to bring more safety, well, the mechanism was control. And unfortunately, we keep the same neural pathway, the same mindset, the same protection. So these are the type of things,
Absolutely.
to your point, you're trying to also remove, because what you got you here won't get you there as well.
That's exactly it. And for someone to come and tell you that, well, this is what it's rooted in, and these were all the experiences you had before. And that was when I met my second therapist. So
Mm-hmm.
I had stopped sessions with my first, went and, you know, she had recommended this other therapist and said, you know, I think she probably is better suited for you. And so I went in to meet with her, and it was like a match made in heaven. And I'm so grateful for it because I know that, you know, it can take a while for you to find someone that you're comfortable talking to
Yes.
about these things.
Yes.
And, you know, also someone who's going to make you feel comfortable opening up, but also being able to challenge yourself, right? In the way that you
Yeah.
look at yourself, look at experiences. And, you know, the whole thing, the whole role of shame, that became so abundantly clear to me that that was holding me back so much. The kind of emphasis and value that I placed in what others thought, you know, how they judged me, how they regarded me, like unbelievable how much power we give away. And
Yes.
it's not to say that any one of those people expected you to do that.
Yeah.
It's the narrative we gave ourselves. It's what we
Yeah.
grew up understanding to be
Exactly.
true. And so, you know, I think, as you said, it's rewiring all of that. It's a
Yeah.
learning new habits, new patterns that we can create that become intrinsically shaped in our brains, you know, in our minds.
Yeah.
And that, to me, for sure, there was change that happened during the time that I sought counsel, and I did therapy. And when I approached my therapist, because I had come across the organization Maps Canada while watching Goop Lab, the series that Gwyneth Paltrow's company had on Netflix. And so they had introduced Maps Canada on this episode. And I thought, oh my goodness, like, how did I not
Yeah.
know about this group? But they're Canadian. And so I looked into them and I started to learn more about what they were doing. And I mean, they have done incredible work for the past 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
experimenting with the use of plant-based medicines.
Yeah.
Psychedelics, I think, would probably be the better sort of all-encompassing term I would use
Mm-hmm.
for what they have, you know, used. And then I'm not sure if MDMA would be in that, you know, in that bucket as well. But this idea that, you know, you could truly, and I mean, way more impactfully change someone's experience with mental you know, health issues, that to me is mind-blowing. Because
Yes.
when we look at the way that the traditional system has worked, and I'm not suggesting this is for everyone, but I'm just going to call it out. You
Yeah.
know, when I shared it with my therapist, she summed it up perfectly. She said to me, you know, Peggy, she goes, I could treat you for 25 years and we'll get this, you know, we'll get the kind of the same results. Of course, she said, like, you're curious, you're invested, you're doing a lot more work than maybe the average person would, but 25 years, or you could do this treatment, and in a year,
Yeah.
guaranteed, you're going to come out of this a different person. And you and I have both had our experiences. And, you know, I would say when I did ayahuasca in Peru in February, I have a really good girlfriend, Judy Octon, who's in Geneva. And she said to me, does this call you? And I just, it was last February. I said, I'm going to go, I'm going. And I'm very pragmatic. I'm very practical. And so I was like, oh, it's not really responsible for me as an entrepreneur to go spend this money and, the whole thing, and taking time away from my kids. And, so I came up with all these excuses, and I just said, something in my heart is pulling me to say, you got to go. Like, you got to do this. And in a way, I was facing my own fear by taking the leap and going to Peru on my own to go do this. And she met me there, but nonetheless, it was very much a new page in my life that I was so proud of myself for doing.
Yeah.
And so I would just add there just really quick. The experience I had, I'm not going to suggest that everyone's experience is going to be the same, but what I will say is this, is that if you remain open, truly, truly open to not wanting to control, to not wanting security, to not wanting to look like you've got some sort of, recognition that you're doing things right, but that you're okay with the unknown, you're okay with the uncertainty, you're okay with just experiencing what you are experiencing at every step you go through life, then, I mean, this could be massively transformational for you.
Yeah, and I like what you mentioned, like you had the courage to do it, because there was very still so much stigma around psychedelics that, whether we want it or not, even if you and I have read tons of scientific studies saying, it is great, it is safe, it is the way of the future, we still have in the back of our mind all the, fear mongering, or I should say brainwashing, that has been around for like 50 years around psychedelics. So I want to hear a bit more. I know you've done ayahuasca. I know you're doing microdosing with psilocybin. So plant medicine is something that is working well for you. Do you want to tell us a bit more? I won't say the before and after, because sometimes it's a bit difficult to exactly pinpoint things, but some of the benefits you've seen with your ayahuasca trip, which is more like a big experience over a week, and your microdosing psilocybin. So psilocybin is magic mushroom for our listeners, and which you do every other day, and maybe explain a bit your frequency. If you could tell us the benefits, I think that would be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So the ayahuasca experience, it's interesting when people talk about doing ayahuasca. For me, it wasn't that when I, took it that I could see some immediate effects. So what I mean by that is there is a practice that, the Shabibu community that lives, in Peru and borders sort of Brazil. So, there's parts of the community that also are in Brazil, that would suggest that it's a, elixir of some kind that you just take, and then so just, for those listening, it's, the leaf of one particular plant combined with the bark of another plant, and the two can, together will actually create the kind of effect that we're looking for. That idea that you can tune into, the things around you more clearly, that you have a greater awareness of the energy, that's flowing around us. Like that entire, point about being present, that is what I felt that ayahuasca really allows you to do. And so what I mean by that, you don't just take it and expect that it's going to just change your life, is that there's a ceremony. There are people who are such wonderful people, Francesca and Niels, who are the organizers of this retreat that I went to, who I'm still in touch with on a regular basis, and trying to see how we can help others experience what I had the pleasure of experiencing. But, when I think about, the maestros that conducted the ceremony, they, had told us, like, you want to come in with intention. So come in with that intention. What is it that you want to actually address? And when we're conscious of what it is that we want to address, whether it was like, embracing my sexuality, to, being, basically forgiving all those who I thought had, hurt me in some way, that idea that you walk into that ceremony with an intention, I think focuses your energy on that particular thing, right?
exactly.
Versus trying to sort of throw caution to the wind
Yeah,
and trying to tackle everything at once. It's
yeah,
too
yeah,
much to deal with. So I felt like this was such a powerful thing when you could feel their energy, what they created. These are maestros. They've done this and they've practiced this
yeah,
for many, many years. And, they have spent their lives tuning into these, plants and the energy and just communicating with them in their own way. So they started to sing to us. And it was the sound, like the reverberation
yeah,
of the sound they were emitting that was actually causing the
yeah,
plant, to do something and to react inside of me. What I felt was really fascinating, just to share a bit more about the experience, is that you see things that your brain is saying to you, oh no, you're not in control. You're going to lose control. It was sort of fight or flight, And so
yeah,
the way that my brain is wired just happened to be that I started to see things that made me scared, can't let go, can't let go, don't let go. And I
uh,
remember physically holding on to my mat. Like I was like, oh my God, I can't let go. I can't let go. And I could feel this energy inside
yeah,
of me just continue to sort of, elevate and elevate
uh-huh,
with, and the voice of the maestros, increasing, and they're facing you. So they're doing
uh,
it with intention as well. They're saying, look, I'm coming to help you.
yeah,
And the whole idea that they believe is that, look, we're going to take out the bad.
yeah,
You're going to release it, whatever that is. We're going to say, make peace with it and release it. And so we do it through breathing, breath work. We do it through so many ways. But what is so absolutely amazing is that once I let go, it was like I can't even describe it. I mean, I guess for some that are adrenaline, seekers, falling out of a, plane
yeah,
and being like
yeah.
fully free falling, but it didn't feel that scary for me because that would be scary if I was doing that. But
Yes,
the whole idea of letting go was just euphoric. I mean, it
yeah,
was unbelievable. That kind of rush of just positive energy that I felt all around me, and I couldn't stop smiling and laughing. And I remember the organizers just kept on looking at me and thinking, oh my God, she's just beaming. And it wasn't because it was me. This could happen to anyone. But I guess what
yes,
I'm trying to do is share with your audience today that it is just incredible what you can achieve if you let yourself, remain open to experiencing different things. And it doesn't
yeah,
have to be plant-based medicines, because I know for some it might, make them afraid. But, this idea that we take so much, we consume so much that we know isn't good for us,
yes,
that
exactly.
actually could cause our health to
Yeah,
deteriorate. But for some reason, we're bound by what we think societally is okay and accepted, what our parents said was okay and is accepted, what our friends think is okay. And once we sort of push the boundaries on things, we think, oh my gosh, have I even been living? Like,
yeah,
this is unbelievable. And I have to say, Peggy, the thing that I would say about the effect of it was that I feel like it still exists within me,
hmm,
this experience. And it's like the anchor that's within me.
yeah,
And people talk about, ayahuasca never leaves you, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the whole idea that I'm microdosing still, I think the two go well together.
exactly.
But as I describe that experience to you, the reason why I feel like it's never left me is that I feel that euphoria as I described it to you.
Yeah,
And that to me, it's like I'm reliving it, but it doesn't mean that I have to talk about it to feel it. I wake up every morning and I will tell you, I was glass half empty. I was very
yes,
critical.
of course. It's a way to
Environment
protect
I grew up
yourself again,
in.
like
That's
it's
right.
not, yeah,
Yeah. I did think I was supportive and I was a natural leader and I
yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to inspire,
yeah,
but truly within myself, I wasn't giving myself that kind of gratitude and that
exactly.
kind of love and support. But my goodness, like today, I wake up every morning and I'm like, okay, there are some challenges I have to address, but I'm like, who cares? Life is amazing. Like the appreciation I have for life is just, it's off the charts.
So I'd love to hear as well about your experience microdosing, because the way I look at, the way to transform and optimize our health is a microdosing regimen all year round, and every 12, 18 months, a plant medicine trip. So for you, it's ayahuasca. For me, it's a psilocybin trip, but the rationale is the same. It's this big foundational trip you do, again, every 12, 18 months, but you still have the continuous, not just maintenance, because you continue to improve thanks to the microdosing. It's just a different approach, a milder approach. So do you want to tell me a bit more about your experience microdosing and how you see, that playing out again in your own transformation and in your career as well,
Yeah. I love that you said what you said there, because I would say about 2 months ago, I thought, oh, I don't ever have to go and do a retreat again. Like, I'm good. I'll just microdose
It's like
forever.
taking one great shower, and thinking,
Totally.
well, I
Literally.
don't
Yeah.
need to take a
Yeah.
shower anymore, but it
I'm good.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so
exactly.
clean. Yeah.
I'm just going to take a
So,
shower
so
every 12, 18 months, and
that's
amazing.
right. And that's when we realize no one's around us, and you're thinking, well, I guess that's not working. But yes, exactly. I was going to say that it's interesting because it's what you had talked about there, that you're constantly learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying this to someone the other day, and I think it might have been my coach, Jim, where I said, because I just recently signed up for some coaching, and, the conscious leadership group, I love, love, love them. And I think a lot of your listeners today would benefit from checking them out. So Conscious Leadership Group and the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership is the book that I would highly recommend. So with that, Jim, who is one of my coaches, he said to me, I think we were talking about, when you're awakened, you can't go back.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's
It's like
levels of,
the red
levels of
pill
awakening.
and the blue pill.
Yes,
There is no coming
that's,
back. Yes, yes. Sometimes
there's
you
no coming
wish,
back.
but there is no coming back.
I know. I'm going to say to all that your listeners today, that an audience, like, it just not scary. It's not like the Matrix. It's not that scary. But I would say it's actually, you just feel, I don't know, just reinvigorated. It's like I have this new lease on life that I thought no one could
Yeah.
ever tell me, okay, Lina, in your 40s, this is going to happen and you are going to totally transform. And I'm going to be like,
Yeah.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's possible. And it's possible at any age. You could be,
Yeah,
80 and still go
exactly.
through,
You have people who do
right?
that at 80 years old, and good for them,
That's right.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
as long as you're
But it's
alive.
interesting. Well, and that's why it was funny that when you said that, I thought, I am now just talking to the organizers of that retreat, Francesca and Niels, again, about holding a retreat here in Canada. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I shared that with you. And one of the things that they had said was, maybe we'll do psilocybin, instead. And I thought, well, that's really interesting because, I really like the whole feel of the maestros. But, being in Peru, there's something really special about that. I
Yeah,
mean,
for
the
sure.
entire kind of energy force that I felt.
Yeah.
But I would say that it is for sure for most people, a daunting, thought to have to take something like this on. And I guess what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, if you open yourself up to what you feel is right for you, it is interesting to potentially start with a microdosing approach and see
Yes.
how that works for you. And
Mm-hmm.
many people have done microdosing for years, and they've seen gradual incremental improvements over that time. So I highly recommend
Yeah.
not being afraid to take it in a gradual approach,
Yeah.
or dive in and go to some retreat where you feel it makes
Yeah.
sense for you. But there are no shortage of resources and help online that people would be willing to provide. Obviously, I'm happy to make references to, referrals to people that, are interested. But I would say for sure that once you do have that like sort of significant awakening, that you only crave more. Like you
Yes,
eventually want
exactly.
more. What's the next
Exactly.
level,
Yeah. What I
So
like with microdosing is that you continue building. So I did what you mentioned. I started with microdosing psilocybin, and because I was so happy with the results, I want to do like a big journey. And I know we're almost at the end of our time, but there are a few things you mentioned that I really want our listeners to keep in mind. What Lina did, the combo of microdosing and a big trip, kind of, is the way I see the most optimal management of plant medicine, but also the combination of that with other tools. whether it's
Mhm.
coaching, whether it's therapy. I'm big with tapping, guided meditation, visualization, because these plant medicines are amazing.
Mhm.
At the same time, I really want to make the most of them. And I know you're the same. So you're like, wow, it's going to help me rewire my brain. It's going to help me be more aware. It's going to help me be more present. Well, let's turbocharge other practices with that. So I'm sure what you're seeing now with your coaching, with your therapist, what I see with my own practice, hypnosis and all that stuff, is like 10 times deeper and faster
Yeah.
than
Yep.
just the plant medicine. So I like the fact that you didn't say, okay, I'm microdosing now, I'm stopping everything. And that's
Yeah.
great. People do that, and that's better than not doing anything. But at the end of the day, you're like, ah, if I can have more, maybe we're greedy. I don't know. But there is a way to get more.
I think you're absolutely right. And that is such a good point to end it with, because I find that we think there's a silver bullet, right? And so someone's going to start
Mm-hmm.
microdosing. And the other thing that you and I've talked about, just as, some advice to wrap this up, that you want to do that, as you and I both discussed, that day on, day off, maybe increase your dosage on certain days that you can allow yourself sort of quiet space and time in a surrounding environment that is going to be sort of, unobstructive and,
Yeah.
allows you to sort of be in a calm setting. Those are opportunities for us to continue to learn. But I think you're right to say that if you're not seeking other ways to tune into yourself, like consciously taking time out, and as someone used to say, can you actually take time to meditate? And I never really saw the value of that until I went on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
And breathe, like just like breath work, so important. I still am working on that. Like
Yeah.
having the opportunity to just sort of pause, walk away from your desk, walk away from, all these back to back to back meetings, creating space for yourself to just sit there, and it
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to think. Actually, it's just sit there. And one of the things that we talk about is feeling your feelings, like
Yeah.
feeling what's going on in your body at that time, so that you're not conditioned to just react.
And I think what's important to finish on is it doesn't have to be 45 minutes of meditation or breath
Total.
work. To your point, it can be, okay, I'm sitting for 2 minutes between calls, breathing, closing my eyes. So I'm writing this book, The Microdose Diet, which is a combination of
Yeah.
microdosing and alternative medicine like tapping and guided meditation. And it's basically 10 minutes a day.
Hmm.
But these
Hmm.
10 minutes make a massive difference when combined with
Absolutely.
microdosing. And I think many of us were shying away of meditation because people are like, well, you need to
Hmm.
meditate 30 minutes in the morning, 40 minutes at night. I'm already supposed to working out every day. Like
Yeah.
I don't have, I don't have that type
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thank you so much, Lina, for sharing and
Oh,
this candor. And I think it's going to be extremely helpful for our viewers to understand your practice, how it helped you. Again, I was talking about transformation, your business. You would have never become an entrepreneur without all
yep.
these nudges. So, and again, I
Definitely.
want to make sure people understand it's not as if you ditched everything and you became an entrepreneur. It was very thoughtful. The changes are thoughtful. If you didn't want, you wouldn't have done it. So
That's
it's
right.
it's
That's
very
right.
strategic, and you made the most of it. So thank you so much, Lina, for your time. It was so lovely to chat as always.
Oh, thank you so much, Peggy. And thank you for all the work that you're doing to educate and inform people on the options that are there for them. So much love and respect. And I look forward to chatting again.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
There. Bye.